Welcome to another session of Church Administration 202. This is Steve Goode, your instructor, and we're going to be looking at the basics of Robert's Rules of Order. Every minister should know how to conduct a meeting with Robert's Rules of Order, and that's what we'll be learning today. During this session, there are several things you should expect to learn. One is the background for Robert's Rules of Order, the history of Robert's Rules. And then, why should we use Robert's Rules in the first place? They're used to be the parliamentary device or instrument almost every organization uses. Why is that so? And then the purposes for Robert's Rules, and then 10 basic rules that will help guide you as you are involved as a presiding officer at a business meeting. Then how to run a meeting efficiently. Keeping the minutes. Every secretary needs to know how to keep the minutes and what's necessary to be kept in the minutes of a meeting. Then motions and voting. How to protect the rights of those who have a dissenting voice. And then the discussion of a motion. And then we'll have some questions and answers concerning Robert's Rules of Order to finish off this discussion. And these questions and answers could be very helpful for you as you write your paper on Robert's Rules of Order. So I would encourage you to pay special attention and close attention to them. What about the background for Robert's Rules of Order? Well, Robert's Rules of Order is the default legal process for most groups, including churches. It was first published in 1876 as a synthesis for existing practices derived from British parliamentary law and continuously revised since then. Robert specifies the creation and maintenance of what are technically known as deliberative assemblies. It is through the action of deliberative assemblies that most of our public business is legally conducted. Why has Robert's been used since 1876? And why do you use Robert's in the first place? Well, it's obvious that deliberative assemblies must operate in a manner that is formal, fair, and democratic. It's generally agreed that Roberts provides such a process. The process described by Roberts is basically what anyone would get if he or she thought through the fair and orderly operation of majority rule. A group approach to an orderly process requires a structure. Roberts' documentation is very widely available, and it can continue to function even when resolving questions where there are deeply opposed points of view. The purpose of Robert's Rules of Order is based on common sense and logic. You would come up with a similar kind of process or structure if you had to simply preside over a meeting without any rules whatsoever. You would come up with something similar to Robert's Rules of Order. The rules do the following three things. They protect the rights of the majority to decide. That is, if there are 51% or one vote over 50% in reality, then that majority decides the issue. But it's also equally important to protect the rights of the minority, that their voice can be heard. And then the rights of the individual members. And those rights are important as well. And now let's look at the 10 basic rules for Robert's Rules of Order. Now these are simplified, and these are not all the rules, but if you know these rules, they will help you get through almost any meeting. Number 1, the rights of the organization supersede the rights of the individual members. Always remember that the members are important, but ultimately the organization and its rights are more important and more valuable even than the individual members. Number 2, all members are equal and their rights are equal. Those rights are this: to attend the meetings, to make motions, and to speak the motions. In debate, they have the right to nominate, to vote, and to hold office. Then number 3, a quorum must be present to do business. For general business meetings, a quorum can be defined in whatever way the organization wants to define the quorum. It could be 10% of the members, and that is a good rule of thumb. Others say those present will constitute a quorum. But you need to be sure that you understand what a quorum is in a church business meeting. And then number 4, the majority rules. All questions at any legally convened meeting should be decided by the simple majority of the votes cast, unless stipulated otherwise in the Constitution. And then number 5, silence means consent. Those members that do not vote agree to go along with the decision of the majority by their silence. Now we continue the 10 basic rules. Number 6, 2/3 vote rule. That vote rule states that a 2/3 vote is necessary whenever limiting or taking away the rights of members or changing a previous decision. Number 7, one question at a time and one speaker at a time. Motions must be related to matters under consideration, and once a member has been recognized, this individual has been granted the floor and may not be interrupted by any other member. Number 8, motions must receive full debate. The meeting chair may not put a motion to vote as long as a member wishes to debate it. The debate can only be cut short by a 2/3 vote. Number 9, once a decision is made, an identical motion must not be brought forward in the same meeting. Such a motion should be ruled out of order by the meeting chair. If a motion needs to be reconsidered, it may be, but it must be at another general meeting, and then a 2/3 majority vote would be required. And then number 10, personal remarks in any debate are always out of order. Number 10, personal remarks in a debate are always out of order. You debate motions, not motives. Debate must be directed to principles and not at personalities. Well, hopefully these 10 rules will help you. Let me just review them. There's the right of the organization. Now let me review the 10 basic rules. The rights of the organization supersede the rights of the individual members. All members are equal, and their rights are equal. A quorum must be present to do business. The majority rules. Silence means consent. The 2/3 rule says that 2/3 is necessary whenever you are limiting or taking away the rights of members. One question at a time and one speaker at a time. Number 8, motions must receive full debate. Number 9, once a decision is made, an identical motion must not be brought forward at the same meeting. And number 10, personal remarks in debate are always out of order. In order to run a meeting effectively, the chairperson must remember 3 things. Start on time and stay on time. You need to be organized. That is, have a meeting agenda. You set out ahead of time exactly what you anticipate accomplishing, how much time it should take, and when to move on. And then be prepared. Know the rules, know the parliamentary procedure, and know the bylaws of the organization you serve. This slide continues our discussion from the former slide, that is, how to run a meeting effectively. We're able to run a meeting effectively when we're in control of the floor. That is, that's the chairperson's responsibility, to be sure that one person is speaking at a time on one subject. Then the chair is to be impartial, composed, be precise, be able to restate a motion before the vote is taken. You're focused, stay on track with the discussion, and you're temperate. That is, use the gavel sparingly, call someone out of order sparingly. If you will practice these simple tips, it will help you run an effective meeting, and before long, you'll be a real pro at it. On this slide, and one to follow, we will talk about keeping minutes. Minutes are the written record of the meeting, and typically the secretary of the organization will be the person taking minutes. Minutes are the permanent and legal record of the meeting. They should be written as concisely as possible. The secretary's duty should never be that of being in conflict with those members who are speaking or expressing an opinion or those who are voting. What should the secretary be sure is found in the minutes he or she is keeping? Well, the date and the time of the meeting. List the audience. If it's a small meeting, list the audience. Now, in a larger meeting, you just simply mention that a quorum was present. There should be a brief description of discussions. Now, not word for word, nor should you put the name of the person who said such and such. You just simply put a brief description of the discussion. Then you want to have a recording of all motions. Include the name of the person who made the motion. You want to include the person who seconded, and then the results of the motion, either pass or fail. You don't put the motion passed 13 to 12. And then you put the time of adjournment, who the presiding officer was, and who the secretary was taking the minutes. What about the approval of minutes? At each meeting, the minutes need to be reviewed from the prior meeting. This can either be done by reading the minutes or preferably by having them printed so that each member will have a copy and can simply read over it. Thus you stay on your time schedule. Allow for corrections, additions, or deletions. When I'm presiding in a meeting, I simply say, after the minutes have been read, are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? If there are none, they will stand approved as read. The minutes are basically a reminder to the members of the previous discussion that took place. When motions and voting take place, a great rule is to keep it simple. Any voting member may make a motion. Another voting member must second the motion. Discussion then can take place. Following discussion, the chairperson or meeting chair must call for a vote. You could simply say, those in favor say aye, those opposed say no. The results then should be announced, for it is only after the results are announced that the vote is official and binding. This slide is very straightforward. When discussion is open to the members of the organization, just simply remember this: the basic premise is to help and not to hinder the decision making. I encourage you to be a good parliamentarian. If you would like to have more information, the following sites would serve as a wonderful resource for you or anyone else in your church that presides at meetings. We now turn our attention to some questions and answers for Robert's Rules of Order. If you will pay special attention to this section, it will help you in writing your paper on Robert's Rules of Order. What is a motion? A motion is a formal proposal by a member in a meeting that the group take certain action. A main motion is one whose introduction brings business before an assembly. There should be no debate on a matter before a motion has been made, and only one main motion may be before the assembly or action at a time. What is an amendment? An amendment is a proposal which, if adopted, modifies the wording and, within limits, often the meaning of the main motion. Amendments should say exactly where in the main motion the change is to be made and precisely what words to use. Amendments, like main motions, can be required by the chair to be submitted by the mover in writing. What do you do if you want to bring up a new idea before the group? To bring a new idea before the group, you first have to have the floor, which is accomplished by standing and addressing the chair with whatever that chairperson's title may be. For example, Mr. Chairman. The chair will then recognize the person wanting to make the motion, thereby giving that individual the floor. After having the floor, make a motion by saying, "I move that," and then clearly describe the proposal, the new idea. It's important to say precisely what the words of the motion are to be. Writing down beforehand is an excellent way to ensure the correct wording. After making a motion, you immediately sit down. Number 4, what should you do if you want to change some of the wording in a motion under discussion? To change some of the wording in a motion under discussion, you should propose an amendment. You have to be recognized and have the floor for the proposal and say, "I move to amend by," and state the part or parts to be deleted and what needs to be added and exactly where in the motion. The chair may ask the amendment to be in writing to assure correct language is being proposed. A vote on the amendment is not a vote on the main motion, only on the amendment. Examples of simple word changes are insert or add words, strike out words, and strike out or insert words. Number 5, what should you do if you like the idea of a motion being discussed, but you need to reword it beyond just a simple word change? One way is to move to insert or add a paragraph, strike out a paragraph, or to substitute, which could involve replacing one or more paragraphs in the immediate pending motion with one or more paragraphs given in an amendment. Here's another question for us to deal with. What should you do if you want more study and/or investigation given to the idea being discussed? Well, a motion can be made to postpone to a certain time to allow time for more study and/or investigation given to the idea being discussed. A motion can also be made to commit or to refer the motion to a committee for further evaluation. What should you do if you are tired of the current discussion and want to move forward with the meeting? To close the debate immediately, one can call for the motion for the previous question. This requires a 2/3 vote and is undebatable. The proper wording to close debate on the immediate pending motion is to say, "I move the previous question." What should you do if you want more time personally to study the proposal being discussed? A motion to postpone can be made to give more time for study and/or investigation given to the idea. A time frame should be stated in the motion to postpone and should be stated with these words: "I move to postpone the motion until," and then you state a designated time. All motions have to have a second, and then they're voted on. What should you do if you want to postpone a motion until some later time? A motion can be made to postpone a motion until some later time by either making a motion to postpone to a certain time or to lay on the table. The motion to lay on the table allows the assembly to lay the main motion aside temporarily without setting a time for resuming its consideration, but with the provision that it can be taken up again whenever a majority decide they'd like to do so. And then last, what should you do if you want to end the meeting? A member can propose to close the meeting by simply saying, "I move to adjourn." This motion can be made and the assembly can adjourn even while business is pending, provided that the time for the next meeting is established by the rule of the organization or has been set by the assembly. The motion is one of the first rank, therefore it precedes any other motion on the floor and is not debatable. A simple majority will rule. I hope answering these questions has helped you and will give you a head start on getting ready for the paper that you will submit to me during this course. God bless you. Have a great week.